I made these pegboards all by myself. These pegboards have a charging station, place to keep my everyday item, I can hang all my extra cables and much more. In this video, I will tell you how I made it, the problems I faced and how much it cost. It all started with my dream of transforming this boring normal room into the ultimate creative studio workspace. Pegboards were a must-have because they are functional, customizable, and they look incredible. And the best place to check out for inspiration, Pinterest. Should I go for black? White? I had two options. Either I buy from IKEA, Amazon, or I make them myself. When I checked online, the prices were too high, and at the time, IKEA wasn't available in Delhi. That's when my love for DIY kicked in. First, I bought a plywood sheet, an 8 feet by 4 feet size with a 9 mm thickness. I had the local shop cut it in half so that it's easy to transport. I decided on a 4-inch gap between the holes, which allowed for 55 holes per board. For marking drill points, I initially used a ruler, but it was not long enough to put in a straight line. Then I tried a speed square, and it was doing a great job. Until I realized I can't use speed square to mark the area away from the edge of the board. So I switched to a geometric compass, something I had not used since school projects. And honestly, this was a lifesaver because it made marking quick and to the point. Next came the drilling process. I used a 15 mm drill bit, but it turned out the dowels that I had were only 12 to 13 mm thick. I should have checked it before. I looked for a smaller bit, and after some research, I found a multi-size drill bit online. I marked it at 14 mm with the tape to not drill beyond 12 mm. I drilled the first board completely front and back. For aesthetics, I left the middle section of one board blank. But it did not look as good as I hoped, so I filled in the gaps later. To mount the boards, I used plastic table legs, which I bought from a local hardware shop. I lifted the board slightly higher than I planned to hide the electrical outlet, which I decided to use for a charging dock later on. I used the level app on my phone to make sure it was perfectly straight before securing the other side. For the second board, I repeated the same process. I checked for the equal spacing between the two boards, but with DIY, it's never perfect. And that's part of it. You learn through the process. For the dowels, I had ordered 20 pieces from Amazon each 12-inch long. At the time, I searched for how to make them, but it was too complicated. Without a workbench, I had to get creative with my setup, or as we call it, jugadu. After many attempts, I figured this way was the best to cut the dowels. I cut them in half, giving me 40 pieces of 6 inches. For the shelves, I used the leftover plywood and cut it into multiple 5-inch deep slabs. Most of the holes were so narrow that the dowels were not fitting right, which was good. It's better than loose ones. But I knew this would take forever. It's sanding time. Finally, it was the time for the fun part, decorating.
I'm in the light at the end of the tunnel. Paper stacks, yeah, I got them in the bundles. Said I wouldn't make it, now they looking puzzled. I said I wouldn't take it, had to go and hustle. Have a blast, got the drinks pouring. Getting flued out, yeah, you can bring your friend. It's going down tonight, yeah.
The pegboard turned out functional, visually stunning, and plenty of room for the future customization.
It's going down tonight, yeah.
That's it, it's done. If you're planning to build your own pegboard, I would recommend using a thicker plywood sheet for added stability. With a thicker sheet, the dowels will have more room to hold a grip when inserted, and it will make a big difference in keeping the dowels wobble-free. Buy a good quality plywood sheet and use compass. It's very helpful. Plywood sheet 1240 rupees. This was the cheapest one. For the thickness size of 15 to 18 mm, depending upon brands, it could go anywhere between 1900 to 3200. Make sure you measure your dowels and drill bit size, or buy a multi-size step cone drill bit. I did not use any stain, just clear coat of polyurethane. For that, I used these 3 products and mixed them together. In my honest experience, I would prefer to buy a ready-made product like Touchwood or Woodkeeper to avoid hassle. Screws, caps, and table legs. These can be found in any local hardware shop. Drill machine, circular saw is something that is not included in the cost. But if you're a DIY enthusiast, you should have them. For circular saw, best is go for 5-inch blade. The one I have is 7-inch, and honestly, it's too big and heavy for DIY projects. Speed square, ruler, clamps, screwdriver, these are additional things. If you have them, of course, these will be very helpful. I will add all the links for products in the description. I hope this inspires you to take on your own DIY projects and create something amazing.